time zone, everybody. Woot, woot, woot. Yeah, I know, like party in the house. Um, and yeah, so we are just same pattern as usual. We're gonna just chat for a minute so that anybody who is not paying to be here doesn't miss anything if any ads run. And I'm clearly the worst monetizing streamer on the planet. I'm like, it's fine, you won't miss anything. Just watch the ads. We're good. So yeah, but in a moment we will introduce ourselves and have a good time and kick off. We're going to do some readings today. Woo. So
Hey.
yeah, all right. And Jalisa, I love your book background there. Like it is all you. Like this is great. This is good. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. And I think Anna, you're on the top left, so you were in the hot seat. So who are you? What do you bring to the table today? You don't have to tell us about the reading yet. That comes in a minute.
Okay, so I'm Anna McCluskey. I write urban fantasy generally. My book for Booktopia, however, is an anthology with cocktail recipes, kind of a dark humor situation. Each story has a cocktail recipe. Each cocktail recipe has a story of the same name. And today I'm going to read the one that is the only cocktail recipe I didn't actually make up. It's the classic martini. I decided that a classic martini was a dark enough drink as it is. So it gets a story. It's also my favorite drink. So
Nice. Good. All right, Jalisa.
Yes, so I'm Jaleesa or JS Living, and I write urban fantasy novels that will excite you with its character-driven fiction and slow burn romances. Today I'll be reading from Blood Ties. That's the short story collection.
Great. Claudia.
Hey, I'm Claudia Blood, and I do write urban fantasy like everybody else does, but this particular thing is a science fiction story. So I will be reading from Company Assassin, which is part of this, part of the Relic Saga.
Right. And I am Laura Van Arendonk Ball, and I too write urban fantasy. But today I am here with an epic fantasy project, and that is The Eyes of Mandrel, which is a duology of the poet's eye and the prince's song, and I will be reading chapter 2 from the poet's eye because I did chapter 1 in a previous stream. So, yeah. Okay. I'm so excited. Like, I wish I'd known we were all just going to be doing, like, we all had urban fantasy ties. We could have done something really fun with that. But it is not relevant to Claudia's or my projects for Booktopia. So just bonus side content.
Next time.
Yeah, next time.
Next time,
right.
for sure.
Yes. Is anybody burning to go first for the reading?
I'm not burning, but I'm willing.
I will take willing. Like I think I said I will go last. So that is anybody who wants to go ahead of that is welcome. So let me do this. I'm gonna get control of my windows again. Please hold. All right, and then I'm just gonna blip me out of there. And so now it is all about you, Anna, and wherever you want to take us in our urban fantasy adventure.
All right, yeah. So like I said before, my book is each story is connected to a cocktail recipe. So this particular story is called The Classic Martini, and it is accompanied by my personal recipe for a classic martini, but it's a martini. And this is the story. A man walked into a bar. The bartender did a double take. He was almost certain this was a human, but he couldn't be. A new vampire, maybe? The bartender sniffed the air. No, this guy was definitely human. He scratched his head between his horns, and his eyes met those of the werewolf sitting to his left, the only other customer in the place. Think he's lost? The bartender asked quietly. Could be, Phil. Could be he's about to go missing, the beast replied. The man strode up and indicated the next stool over. This seat taken? It is now. Derek gave him a toothy grin. Thanks, man. You're welcome, man. Phil cleared his throat. What'll you have then? A classic martini. Not dirty, not dry. Classic. Sure. The bartender turned, grabbed a shaker, and filled it with ice. He flipped over a cocktail glass and filled it with ice as well. Then he poured gin and vermouth into the shaker, As he poured gin and vermouth into the shaker, he watched his newest patron from beneath bushy brows, the twitching of his forked tail indicating his anxiety over the unexpected situation. Derek was one of the most vicious werewolves in town, and the bar couldn't afford to gain a reputation for fights. There was an unspoken truce here. No one attacked each other, and in exchange, no one else attacked each other either. But did the truce extend to humans? The question had never come up. Phil fitted the lid into the shaker and lifted it. He froze, about to shake, but arrested by a new thought. This was a human, right? Phil was a demon. There was no hiding that. In the dim bar, you might not notice Derek's extreme hairiness and pointy teeth. But this human hadn't reacted at all to his own horns, tail, and deep maroon skin. Phil lowered the shaker and examined the human again. Male, white, blonde hair and mustache, mid-30s, slim, short, gray suit, striped tie. The man raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem? Phil ventured. I never asked. Did you want this shaken or stirred? I said classic, didn't I? Yes, you did. Phil set the shaker back down, grabbed a long, spiral-handled spoon, and stirred the drink. He emptied the newly chilled glass, strained the martini into it, and garnished it with a single olive. He carefully set down a white paper square, placed the drink exactly in its center, stepped back, and waited to see what would happen next. Derek happened next. He lurched to his feet, his stool clattering to the floor, and grabbed the human by the neck. Do you know where you are? He asked. The human remained seated. He calmly picked up his drink, maneuvering it around Derek's massive forearm. Derek stared at him, eyes narrowing, lips pursing. The man took a sip, smiled at Phil, and replaced the drink on the napkin, right back in the center. This is excellent. Thank you. Phil bared his teeth in a nervous smile. You're welcome. Let me know if I can get you anything else. Derek's fingers elongated, his nails lengthening into claws, pricking the man's neck. His face began to distend as well, his chin retreating and his nose transforming into a snout. His mouth opened and a wordless roar emerged, ending in a venomous snarl. The human sighed, his eyes swiveling toward Derek. Are we going to have trouble? I had heard this place was safe, that there was an unspoken accord between species here. Was that information incorrect? Derek roared again, pulling his hand away, leaving red scratches on either side of the man's neck. Phil intervened. But you're human. Yes, and? Well, Phil hesitated. I guess the question is whether the accord extends to humans. And what can I do to ensure that it does? Derek, with visible effort, pulled himself back into his human-like form. You can leave and never come back. Perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot. Allow me to introduce myself. The man extended an amiable hand to Derek. My name is Harris, Bob Harris. Derek paled, and Phil took a step back. Bob Harris was a name spoken in hushed voices in supernatural circles. Rumor had it that he had over 500 kills to his name. Phil had always pictured someone larger, older, grizzled, leather-clad. He continued, I see you're familiar with my reputation. It is well-earned, and I am tired. I am tired of battling you and your kind. I am tired of looking over my shoulder at every turn. I have been fighting for so long. This evening, I would like to sit in a quiet bar. I would like to sip on this excellent martini, mixed by this excellent, albeit possibly evil gentleman, and I would like to relax. I would like to not kill you tonight. Maybe I'll kill you another night, in another place. But for now, in this place, I just want to drink. Can we reach an agreement on this count? Derek thought for a moment. Phil watched him. Bob watched him. Then Derek turned, picked up his stool, replacing it in front of the bar, and sat down. The next round's on me, Phil. That's my classic martini story.
Love it.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
My back.
Thanks.
I don't know if I'm here or not. Okay. Anyway, if I were here, I would tell you that I really enjoyed that. Oh, there I am. Hey, great. Yeah, no, I loved that, and like right from the beginning with like could be he's about to go missing, and I was like, oh, this is a good place. I mean, not to visit, but to read about. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more about the Bloody Unicorn and other delightfully dark drinks.
Yeah, so each of the stories, most part, are kind of dark humor like that one. There's a couple that are not really meant to be humorous. The Machete, for example, is like a ghost story, not really humorous. And then there's a few that aren't, that are just kind of pure comedy, not super dark. Like A Crapload of Skulls is just kind of like a person walking their dog and finding a bunch of skulls in a humorous way. Um,
In a
but
humorous
yeah, for
way.
the well, I think it's humorous anyway. Um, all of my beta readers also agreed. And then the drinks are, each of them has the same name as the story. So, like, there's, the Machete is a mojito based drink, but, it's my own spin on it. And then there's a few that are, so like In a Piano Fell on Her Head is a twist on an Alabama Slammer. But then most of them are original drinks. For example, let me see, scrolling through, see if I can find one. The Moonlit Wolf is, I call it that because it's like kind of glowing and white. It's got coconut milk and rum chata and then tequila and Cointreau. It's very delicious and
Okay,
glowy.
I
And
think
the
I told you
story is
before. I think I told you before. I barely drink, but I want everything you're describing. So this is terrible. Like you're gonna ruin my sober reputation here. Okay.
I mean, one cocktail isn't going to kill you, right?
No.
Depends upon how big it is.
Yeah, that's true. No,
Yeah.
these sound excellent. I'm ready to see these. These sound excellent. Okay. Sorry. I was getting Jaleesa. Claudia, did you have anything to say while I was over here enthusing, like taking up
Oh
your
no! And
space?
what was the line that you said? Albeit could be evil or something. And I don't know if you
Yes.
saw me laugh.
Yes. Yes.
Oh
Nice.
I thought the I could kill you today or tomorrow part was funny,
yes,
personally.
Yes.
yes.
Excellent. Good urban fantasy. I'm in. Okay. All right. Jaleesa, shall we continue our urban fantasy theme? Would that be good?
Yes, that is perfectly fine.
All right. Let me
So,
spotlight you.
oh wow, I'm in the
Yeah,
spotlight.
you are. It's all about you now.
Okay. All right. So I'll be reading about Blood Ties. It's an urban fantasy short story collection. It's historical fiction meets urban fantasy. At least two of the three stories are. The last story takes place in 2015. And today I'll be reading I guess you can call it like the intros to the stories. There's three of them. So we'll start with the first one, A Thought for Lizzie, My Alter Ego. There's something to be said about being cursed, because that's what this is, a curse. Witches gave my family the ability to turn into creatures of destruction. But for those of us with a more, how can I put it? Yes, volatile nature, we were given the extra special ability to manifest an additional consciousness. It's funny, Lizzie. I'm stuck in your subconscious while you get to live a full life. I only come out when your mind is too weak to handle what life has thrown at us. I should be the one out there. I should be the one learning to control our powers. I should be the one attending practices with Andre. I should be the one falling in love. But it's never me. Instead, I get to deal with the nasty stuff. I get to make the big messes. I get to tear people to shreds. I get to be covered in blood. I get to be unhinged. But I don't always want that. Sometimes I want to be the soft one. You may not know this, Lizzie, but I'm your protector, stuck in the back of your mind until you contact me. One day, we'll be two separate people, but for now, I'm stuck in here and you get to live out there. So that was Liz's story. The second one is a poem. It's Dimitri's story. So it's called A Poem to My Love. A woman of death, a queen of the world, the woman I love. She's the dearest of dears, the sweetest of sweets, the bloodiest of blood. She outshines the moon and the stars, outruns the fastest of creatures, will outlast me and this dreadful world. I, however, am but a man, born into poverty, raised to greatness, destroyed by those closest to me. brought up in fire and brimstone and turned into ash. I come from nothing, will be nothing, am nothing, but her provider of blood, her lover of the flesh, her best friend born of sacrifice, her confidant of rituals past, the only person who understands her suffering. I am the servant who survived the bloodshed. I am Dmitri Kovacs. And then the third one is Angelo's point of view. And this one's called Remembering My Past. I hate living with a man who constantly experiments on me. But if he hadn't, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. Though sometimes I wonder if that's a good thing or not. Let me explain. I was barely even a month in the womb when he injected my mother with a so-called medicine that would stop her aches and pains. It didn't. I was 1 when he tried killing me the first time, which failed. And when I was 5, we went to the lake. I thought it was going to be a fun day in the water. It wasn't. After all, he tried to drown me. I remember being pushed under the water. I thought we were playing a game, but then Father's cold hands held me under. I tapped his hand to tell him to let me up, but he didn't. I thrashed and kicked, but it was to no avail. He wasn't going to let me up. The water rushed into my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I gasped for air, but I was unable to get any. After a while, I passed out. I don't know how long I was out for, but when I finally came to, the only word I could mutter was, why? Because you are strong, Father said, and because you cannot die. You, my son, will help me with my plan. Starting today, I shall train you as a soldier. What does that mean? It was a naive question. Even at that age, I knew what he meant, but I wanted to hear him say it. You will be tortured and maimed until nothing phases you. Now come, my boy. We have much work to do. It wasn't his words that frightened me that day, but the look on his face. He was filled with such malice, such rage. It was as though he were possessed. The other thing that terrified me was his mention of a plan. After all, what type of plans involved the possibility of me, the son of the great Farrakh Nadasdi, being killed? I didn't know it then, but it would be hundreds of years before I got my answer. Besides, I did learn one thing that day. Always wear a smile on your face. That way no one, whether friend or foe, will see the knife you're about to plunge into their back.
Oh my
And that's it.
gosh.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh man.
And that was the unedited version.
Wow. So I had things I was like, when we were reading the first one, I was like, oh, I want to make sure I mention that. And then, like, I'm sorry, we got to the end and I was like, everything has been wiped by each one that came by. Wow. But yeah, so is this, you said these are, two of these are historical urban fantasy and one is contemporary. Is that what you said, or?
Yes. Yes. So the first one takes place, oops, I should have closed it out. The
Sorry.
first one takes place in 1593, and the second one is 1600, and the last one is 2015.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, 1593 is very specific. Is there a particular, with spoiler free, if this is a just don't ask that question, then I will retract it. But is there a specific historical event that we're tying into that is?
Not really. So
Okay.
Blood Ties is actually I want to say it's like a continuation or like prequel kind of thing to my urban fantasy novel, The Covenant of Blood. So this is just like more background information of the characters in that book. And so because of the timeline of the original book, this particular event happened at that particular time.
Okay. Okay.
So the dates coincide with the events of the book.
Cool. That sounds fun. Like there's
Oh yeah.
that first one had so much voice to it. Just, like, I don't know. I'm just vibing over here. Don't mind me. I'm just excited. So
And it does. It makes you so curious how they come together because obviously
Yeah.
they do, and they're very different and
Yeah.
very Tortured, maybe, is the right word.
Gotta say,
Little
your
bit.
opening line for each of those is just like absolutely killer. Like I am hooked from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
love that.
Nice. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm like, Claudia, I'm sorry. We're gonna
I know, I was
derail
like, I don't
from.
want to go now. Come
Yeah,
on.
we're gonna derail from the urban fantasy vibe. Like we should have had just an urban fantasy stream, topic stream, because like
Totally.
those just flowed so well next to each other. But now I'm like, oh, sorry, I gotta
Sorry.
take you off into like Ren Fair land over here. So but Claudia, you can be our bridge here in the middle.
I'm the bridge.
Yes.
And so what I chose to read was, I think it's chapter 3 of the novel. And so you've already learned that Duff, the main character, is he's last day in the orphanage. He's about to get booted out, and you learn some background stories about there's demons in the world, and that there are these families that if you can't get a job with them, you basically starve to death. Your happy kind of place that you live, um, or don't. And so this is chapter 2, and so it's not going to have the same kind of lines you are. It's like I need a warning label or something beforehand. So anyway, okay, so here we go. Duff stood frozen in the fenced yard of the orphanage. The wail of the alarm cut through the wet air. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The demon alarm hadn't sounded for years. Last time, he'd huddled with the rest of the kids in the closet, hoping nothing got in. He'd heard that a family had been decimated. The flash of a dark form rushed to the east. A woman's shrill scream sounded from the same direction, followed by a high-pitched, desperate sobbing. Matilda opened the door. What's going on? Matilda, lock this door! Duff's voice came out harsher than he wanted. He stepped toward the door to push it shut. She needed to stay inside and keep the kids safe. What about you? Matilda seemed to ignore his tone, but bit her lip and eased the door open enough to let him back in. You could stay here longer. I've got to help. His voice was quiet, but she still heard him, judging by the loss of color in her cheeks. Her eyes glittered, making his heart squeeze. But she looked like she wanted to argue. She couldn't keep him safe. He couldn't shelter here. He had to go and prove himself. There wasn't a family who wanted him, but maybe this would be his one chance to prove himself. Maybe if he could save the town or someone important from the demons, they'd take him in and stay fence and ran towards the noise. If he cut between the stable and the Sears hut, he could reach the open lane by the gate. That's where the screaming seemed the loudest. What are you doing? A deep voice, one he hadn't heard before, barked out from the shadows. Someone pushed his shoulder, knocking him off balance. Duff stumbled and crashed against the wall. His breath wished out. His heart kept running. Duff pushed up to stand, but whoever had him was strong and set him back on his feet. Duff gazed up to the face of a bald man with cold blue eyes. He was lean without being skinny. He radiated strength and inner confidence even in the dark alley. You never go towards this. You never go toward the screaming. His tone was matter of fact, but not dismissive. I want to help. It was dumb but true. He had to help. He had to distribute. He had to contribute and had to figure out his place in the town. If he hid now, he'd hide forever and would die just like all the other orphans before him. He assumed they were dead since he never saw them again. By getting yourself killed? The man scoffed softly. He looked familiar, but no name popped to mind. Not many people were bald. Not many people had non-family tattoos on their arms. The ink fur from his wolf tattoo and the hair on his arm blended together. When the man moved, the wolf tattoo moved too. The smell of wet animals from the barn and something burning in the distance filled the void. Look, kid, you must not have gotten any training. The demons, they're smart. A whole pack of them got in. They're the ones screaming to see if they can pick off some easy prey. The next thing they'll do is try to trick their way into a building. How did the man know so much? He had no family sign. Maybe he was on a crew? What's your name? What family are you from? Duff crossed his arms. You can call me Zachariah. The man turned away and made his way across the courtyard. There was something about the way he walked that showed he was annoyed. Was it the question about family or something else? Where are you going? Duff followed his movements, the shorter steps testing the ground, leaning back and testing with each step. A pause to listen. Duff did the same. The sun rose, making the shadows seem deeper. The town was so still and quiet. Every window in the buildings were ablaze with light, but no silhouettes crossed the windows. The normal early morning foot traffic was missing. The smell of burning still lingered in the air. Tracking where they came in. Why? Zachariah didn't answer. Sorry. Zachariah didn't answer, but paused behind the Sears huts. Even here, Duff could smell the Sears' unwashed bodies. Once the Seer ended up in the hut, they were beyond caring for themselves. The time currents only they could see, driving them crazy. He shuddered, but stepped closer to look at what Zachariah had found. There was a distinct print, 6 toes, 4 in the front and 2 in the back. An inch out there was a deep mark. Is that a claw mark? Claw mark? Duff whispered. This one's excited. The claws are partially extended. He followed the tracks to the corner. What does that mean? Zachariah seemed to consider his words. The demons are here for a reason. If we're quiet and follow them, we can find out why. This side was too quiet and dark. The last building was the orphanage. The arrangement kept all the undesirables together. Unease pooled in his heart. Could the demons be heading to the orphanage? Zachariah pointed to the ground. They're picking up speed. The tracks look blurred and deeper. They'll split soon. Behind the Sear huts, the tracks separated into 5 distinct sets. All 5 sets headed towards the orphanage. All right, that was my excerpt on that.
Wow.
I want to know why the demons are there.
I want to know so many things. Like, yeah. And the Seers, who are apparently watching time currents and makes them kind of inaccessible to the rest of us. But yeah.
So from the previous, do you remember the 80s aerobics instructor we had talked about?
Yes.
She's a seer. So there's all these people sucked through time that end up on this planet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sci-fi.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I love
And we still
story.
kept enough demons to stay with the urban fantasy theme. So that was a very good transition. Thank you. So yeah.
It was in a town, so we got some urban.
Yes, yes, we're all set. Yeah, we're having an invasion, and that's it's intriguing. So, did you read us chapter 1 at some previous point, or did you just start with chapter 2?
I just started with chapter 3.
Okay.
I just it was the closest to being short enough, and then I actually did truncate a little bit because this is going on for a long time. We're just gonna move ahead.
Move on. Okay, so everybody go check Claudia's project to get chapter 1 there. All of these, by the way, have links in the chat, so you will be able to see things as we're going. So, okay, good. Well, then my story also has demons, but they turn out that's just what they call the people from across the mountains. So we're moving slowly across our urban fantasy spectrum here. So, okay. Let me see if I can. I'm going to try to bring me up. Oh, look, there's so many of me. Okay, there's. Okay, and I am going to read. I'm also not starting at the beginning. I read chapter 1 on a previous stream, so I'm going to read chapter 2, and we are picking up Lisbeth and Galen, our partners. They're basically at this point itinerant mercenaries, and they just got invited to lunch to talk about a new job, and that is where we are coming in here. So, the mare's head served a tasty pie, steaming and surprisingly full of vegetables and poultry. The pastry was a bit dry, but it wasn't worth complaint. They took a table in the open-air eating space where the sun from the street could reach them and warm their sleeves. Andrew worked steadily at his pie, hardly looking up, and Galen and Elizabeth saw no reason to interrupt him. They ate their own meals, savoring the meaty gravy until Andrew paused between bites. I suppose you'll want to know why I asked you to join me. In your own time, Elizabeth spooned another bite into her mouth. Galen spoke with his mouth full. You're not just hospitable. He smiled apologetically, still chewing. I like to think that I am, but that is not what brings us here together. Andrew set down his spoon and stared at his plate. I want you to help my daughter, and to do that, I have to ask you not to think ill of her. Lisbeth kept eating. We can hardly think ill of someone we haven't met. Galen nodded agreement, still chewing. You might think differently when you hear what I have to say. Elizabeth shrugged. Did your daughter fall into the family way, steal something, run off with the wrong sort? Hardly an original offense, even if it feels that way. She did run off with the wrong sort, he said. Road bandits. Galen scooped together a few vegetables. We know something of road bandits. We've even earned bounties on a couple of them. Which was true, although the bounties had been no one of consequence, and had amounted to a pitiful 40 taler altogether. Really? But I wouldn't want you to bring in my daughter for a bounty. Not that I think she has one, he added. But I would pay more for her safe return in any case. She's gone along with the fire brigand. Elizabeth stopped chewing. What? Surely you've heard of the fire brigand? She robs caravans, burning them unless they pay her a weighty tribute. Oh, of course I've heard of her, Elizabeth said dryly. It's only that I thought no one else had, not for the last couple of years. Hasn't she closed up shop, so to speak? He shook his head. I suppose she had, but a few months ago she reappeared. She and her gang are... Her gang? Elizabeth hastily put another bite in her mouth. I thought she worked alone. Oh, no, she's collected a small horde, now including my daughter. They fired out a spice caravan over near the Sung Mountains. She killed 3 people in the attack and burned another to extort the money chest from the caravan master. His mouth flattened into a grim line. I don't want my girl involved in killing or torturing, and I don't want any of them turning on her. I want you to bring her back home. Galen looked at Elizabeth, who was still in her chair. He wondered if she had ever really heard it before when people talked of the destruction wrought by the fire brigand. It probably never really struck her. But all she said aloud was, Galen and I know something about runaways. It might help us to have an idea about why she left in the first place. Andrew chewed the inside of his cheek. I just want her back. Elizabeth looked at him. Finding her will be difficult, but the harder bit will be convincing her to come back with us. I'm not keen on abducting her and trying to drag her back across foothills and plains and Fortuna knows what. I can't think it will make her happier to reach home, and it's too dangerous for us. It won't help you much if we're arrested for girl stealing and she's on her own again, now with more motivation to hide. Andrew looked at his mostly eaten pie. We had an argument, a row over a boy, which sounds all too common and stupid when I tell it to you now, but it's true. We fought over a boy, and I told him he wasn't to speak to her again or I'd break both his arms, and when he took heed of that, she got angry and ran off. That's a considerable threat to make. Did you mean it? I did. I gave him a little bend of his shoulder to emphasize my point. Elizabeth whistled. I don't suppose that could have had anything to do with her departure. Andrew's jaw set. Not going to feel sorry about it, if that was what you mean. I knew him for what he was, and since then he's left the baker's daughter bloodied and pregnant. I wasn't going to see that happen to my daughter. Well, that makes some sense, Elizabeth said, more steadily. We need to know a bit better. Her looks, where you think we might find her, why she might have gone with the fire brigand in particular. Galen glanced at her, suspicious at this last phrase, and now he recognized the set of her jaw. Yes, she might care about the missing daughter. She had, after all, taken pity on another hapless runaway once. But she was definitely interested in the fire brigand. Galen thought her pride was piqued. She wanted to hurt me, Andrew answered with grim honesty. My father was our town's deputy, and I've done some similar work. She knew joining the lawless would wound me. Why the fire brigand? The most lawless, of course. A she-demon is a monster. I imagine hers is the most hated name on the high road about now. Elizabeth's jaw clenched, and Galen knew he'd been right. Her pride had been touched. She didn't mind the despicable reputation, for she had built that herself, but she minded greatly that it was benefiting someone who had simply stolen it. Can you describe her to us? Galen put in. Andrea, after me. Andrea Lawson. She's got nutmeg brown hair down to her waist if she hasn't cut it, and her nose is a bit prominent. Doesn't do a thing to hurt her looks, though. I do have a sketch of her done a couple of years ago. That will help, Galen said. He realized they'd been talking as if they'd agreed to take his commission, though he and Elizabeth hadn't spoken yet. But if Elizabeth had the bit in her teeth over this fire brigand news, there was probably little point in discussing it. They'd go, and they'd find this new fire brigand, and they'd probably even happen to pick up the daughter on the way. Elizabeth wasn't quite ready to hit the road, however. She nodded and set her forearms on the table, leaning forward. And how would you like to arrange payment? All right. Oh, I live here now. How do I get back out? Okay, there's everybody. Great. Okay. Yes. So that is chapter 2. So, dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. So
okay. So wait, is she in the fire brigand?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So Elizabeth is the fire brigand, right? Like this is like a
Yeah,
copycat.
past tense, yes.
Okay.
And she did things a little differently than the current person is doing them. So, but she's also just salty that they took her name. Like, I built this reputation. You don't just
Reasonable.
get to profit off of it. Yeah. So, yes.
I love that we both have characters whose names are like Elizabeth or close to it.
Right. Variations on the theme. Yes.
And also, I did not plan to eat every time you talked about chewing. So,
We're just lucky on that one. All right. Yeah. So, oh, hang on. I need to throw that one in the chat as well. I got everybody else's links up, but I was busy during my reading, so I didn't get that in. So, okay. Well, do we have anything else we need to share before we go? Links to all the projects are in the chat. And yeah, so anything else we need to cover?
So much
oh,
fun.
Anna,
Thanks, guys.
thanks. Anna and I are actually cross collab partners.
I was just about to say,
Nice.
if you back both of ours, you get this pin
Yeah.
that like fits together. It's two halves, and one of them is a cocktail that looks like blood, and then hers is a vampire mouth drinking the cocktail.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, no, I
Fun.
totally missed that you guys were collab partners. Thank you for saying that. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good. And then Claudia's, you've got the box, right? For the,
I've got the box.
you've
Yes,
got the
for
box.
the
So
Oracle
anybody
card.
collecting the cards, Claudia's project is providing the custom box for all of those Oracle art cards. So, like on my project has Oracle art cards. So
Oh,
there
yeah.
we go. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Oh,
And
I'm
how long
excited.
do we have? We're getting down to how many days now? Because
Oh my gosh, we're like 2-3 days left. Thursday.
3 days?
Yeah.
Thursday's the final day.
Thursday.
So
Yeah, and then all this goes away.
yes.
Yeah, it's real close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bum bum bum. Okay. Well, actually, sometimes I do prepare musical stings, but I don't have any prepared for that today. So, sorry, we will be musical sting free. So, okay, just me and my dramatic humming. All right. Do we have any other final like well wishes or bursts of news before we wrap the stream?
Just that I'll be back at 5.
Yes.
For
Okay.
the
Yes. Actually, excellent
other
point.
one.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get Jaleesa and is Rella joining us? Anybody else coming in for that? By us, I mean
I didn't.
you.
I didn't. I didn't see anyone else respond, but hopefully
Okay.
they were trying to figure out their lives and see if they could.
We'll check in. So that's going to be our BIPOC creators stream, and hopefully we'll get to hear from multiple people on that. So we'll see who all is going to be in, but we'll definitely have Jaleesa back at 5 Eastern, wherever that may be for you. So, okay. All right. And well, thank you guys for joining me here today and reading and tempting me with sweet, sweet vibes. And I need to go. I need to go check and make sure that I've got everybody backed because, I've been backing a lot of projects. This has not been a good experience
This
for
is
my
going to
wallet.
be bad.
But
yes, for the wallet.
Me either.
But you know what? I got a full year to
afraid.
recover, so it's fine. So yeah. So okay, everybody, take care. Have an awesome time zone, afternoon, morning, wherever you are, and we'll see some of you in a bit. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.